What brings you into automotive?
It wasn't easy at all, even working in the big companies, like big dealerships. So I actually had to start from scratch, pretty much scratch.
Shady Mohamed, an automotive expert with decades of expertise, is on a mission to transform the industry he loves. Driven by passion and purpose, he leads the charge in digital innovation, reshaping the future and inspiring change.
And that also taught me a very important lesson. It's always very good sometimes when you have to leave your driver's seat and sit on the passenger seat and let someone give you the ways that maybe you're missing. Sales teaches you lessons of life. Now, it's up to you to either use this professionally, very much like the 7 habits of highly effective people, for example. You can use the 7 habits for work. However, the 7 habits are to be actually used in life. Sales teaches you the techniques. Now, it's up to you how to use them. I have to say, sales actually formed 70 to 80% of my current personality. But you have to understand the psychology of the customer. And that's very important. A lot of people try to force the process of dealerships into the customer mentality. I'm a kind of a guy who comes from that area where I believe that the customer centricity is more important. We should actually tailor the processes that the customer wants, not the other way around. It's very hard unless you understand the culture of the person on what questions to be asked. So sticking to a specific script will work in one culture, but not the other. Now, letting go of the ego and actually listening to others is a very important lesson, that it's not only the way that you see, is the way that works. A simple idea from a freshman can give you a new perspective in life. And that is even when I joined Proaxia, that was my point. I wanted to add value. I wanted to feel that I'm adding value to my role and to the entity and to the journey in the automotive business.
Shady, are you ready to unleash?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, we will. How many times we will unleash today?
I don't know. I have actually no idea whatsoever. You told me to leave it totally up to you. So
It's there.
please.
You're in a safe hand.
I hope so.
Habibi. Shady, it's a pleasure having you here today. When I look at your amazing profile, I was intrigued when I looked at your profile. Automotive, I was speaking about automotive sales. The question now, what brings you into automotive?
Well, I will frankly have to say it's the passion. I mean, it pretty much started all the way back at university. Even before that, it just always made sense to me. And ironically, when I joined engineering, and I went into the BSc program and started from Ain Shams University. I mean, you know that we used to be colleagues, however, in different years. I actually was only thinking about 2 choices that made sense: either communications or automotive. And ironically, I did now work in both. I mean, I always considered myself a hardcore automotive guy, and when I was offered the opportunity a couple of years back to join one of the leading automotive dealer management solution companies, it still made sense in the journey. So it's pretty much the passion about the automotive industry itself that actually started from the car itself, the driving, the engineering of the car, and then all the way up to the operations, how things work. And I mean, after sales and service, and then sales, and then management, and then the 360 view of the whole field itself. I can only summarize it by saying it's the passion about the industry.
That's amazing. You just mentioned right now communication and automotive, right? What was that trigger that made you take a decision that I will leave communication at the beginning of my career and move into automotive? If I would say that they are having the same passion, right?
It's definitely the automotive which has the priority, and I have to tell you that. However, the communication and even anything that comes, it's actually a supporting function within the industry itself. You're always going to be having that backbone, and which is the automotive. It's very much that. It's the same like when someone is thinking about buying a car or considering to buy a car. it's actually a means of transport. That's what people don't look at. It's not the car that you actually want. It's the means of transport. Yes, you're trying to put, and it depends from one customer to another or one company to another. It's what you want in that specific car. If you want the luxury, if you want the practical, if you want the resale value, it's various aspects, I mean, to be very frank. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of aspects that lead you to that decision.
Moved into automotive. And when I think just from that perspective, look, in automotive, you have like different departments and functions, right? What made you also intrigued in terms of sales? Why you choose sales? Did you choose it or it comes by coincidence?
I wouldn't, I mean, it depends really if you want to look at it as a coincidence or no. But when I started my career, for example, back in the days, I graduated in the year 2000, 2001. So those days, coming from an engineering background, the only thing, you either had two choices, either to work in the maintenance. These were the old days. So, I mean, for us, now the new generation is totally different. A lot of doors are open to them and it's totally different. Back then, it was either working in service or the OEMs. And coming from Egypt, so there were a couple of factories back in the days. So it's only those two choices. And it wasn't easy at all, even working in the big companies, like big dealerships. So I actually had to start from scratch, pretty much scratch, like a small workshop. And then I worked my way on different things. It was, I have to say, it was an amazing journey. I mean, I've actually enjoyed it. Yes, back in the days, it was so hard, but you actually learn a lot because you tend to know the actual process, how to serve the customer in his best interest. How would you actually deal with a customer who's coming to you and who's somehow totally pissed off, not happy about something in the car? And I'm talking about families, drivers for companies, government entities, stuff like that. How would you deal with those different mentalities? Starting from a simple complaint into some kind of sound, for example. And then how you actually deal with those people, it makes you have your first lesson taught how to listen to the complaint, how to assess it, verify it, and talk with your technical team. If it's in service, then it's the technicians, engineers inside. And having worked in those different systems, like starting from a workshop, there is no system. I mean, those days, there was no system whatsoever. You were doing all of it manually. And you were actually taking the delivery in the street. And we are not talking about the big dealerships. Because I did work my way up to that extent also. Worked there in the small workshop. You see the actual process, the hardcore stuff. That's what I call it. The hands-on experience. Because these kind of entities, you don't have a service, you don't have a reception, you don't have a workshop engineer, you pretty much do everything. If the guy is not there today, you're going to take his place. So that's how it works. And then when you go to a bigger dealership, like sub-dealership, somehow there is a better system, then you actually appreciate that system. Then when you go to the bigger dealership, you see the difference. And I was actually fortunate in being part of those three systems of a workshop, then sub-dealership and dealership in service. It was in a span of around 4 years.
Wow.
3 years something. But I did learn a lot in it. That gave me the leverage when I came back in Dubai back in 2003, and I was applying for a job in service. It was a total coincidence. That is the point which you're referring to. That when I had that interview with the regional sales manager at that time, and it was an Al-Futain. I don't know if I'm supposed to say the names or not, but
Feel free.
I still have a lot of appreciation for these people. I mean, and I still remember those mentors. I cannot forget them because That was the first time I actually get asked the question, do you want to work in service or sales? I didn't even have it in mind. Coming from a background of engineering, by the way, that's what a lot of people don't understand. When we graduate and work as engineers, you tend to have this kind of ego, which takes you a bit of time to actually break. I have to admit that. But we learn it the hard way. That's the time I was actually thinking when I was asked that. And the good thing is that that manager got a phone call and he stayed on it for like 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes were like a full day for me. I was like thinking about, okay, should I answer him sales or after sales? Now, should I take this opportunity? Then I just asked myself a simple question. What is there to lose? Let me try that. I mean, I'm coming from a service background now.
So
and
it was not expected to go into
no
sales.
No way. Not in my wildest dreams. In fact, I saw it as just as a new opportunity. I didn't know what sales, by the way, at that time. Seriously. Had no clue. And the manager just told me, yes, you can do it. I just asked myself, exactly, what did he see that I'm missing? And that also taught me a very important lesson. It's always very good sometimes when you have to leave your driver's seat and sit on the passenger seat and let someone give you the ways that maybe you're missing. And then it's up to you to take that opportunity. Yeah, I don't believe, in all honesty, in this thing of opportunity comes once. No, opportunity is there every day. It's just that if you have the courage to identify the opportunity, which people sometimes look at as a non-opportunity, which is actually a gap. Now, either you see that gap and you take that opportunity, or you will simply miss it. Now, the reason why people say it comes once, however, I disagree with that heading, is that it does come every day. It's just that if you don't see it the first time, you will never see it. You will keep missing it. Now, unless someone comes and he makes you wake up and gives you signs, no, you're missing it. Then, only then, you will take that opportunity. Now, that made me move into sales.
What is the biggest learning that you got it from sales, and specifically sales in automotive? Because I understand sales, we know sales, but honestly, when it comes to automotive sales, it's something that I think it's science fiction. I don't know, but
Automotive sales is actually something that actually taught me everything in life. Even, by the way, even the relations between my friends, even friends back in university, even in school. I mean, I have those friends that I have from school and university, and when we look back in time, and even when we meet today, they see a lot of differences. Sales teaches you the lessons of life. Now, it's up to you to either use it professionally, very much like the 7 habits of highly effective people, for example. You can use the 7 habits for work. However, the 7 habits are to be actually used in life. Sales teaches you the techniques. Now, it's up to you how to use them. I have to say, sales actually formed 70 to 80% of my current personality.
what's that one thing that you got it specifically from automotive sales? The reason that why I'm asking this question, because I came from FMCG background, you know, and when I look at closing the sale, you know, when you come to the retail, something on the shelf, let's say maximum something, it's by $10, $20, $30, you know. So the affordability, me as a shopper, it's easy. But when it comes to selling like something with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, closing the deal itself, it's not an easy, right? So I'm so intrigued to understand what are those techniques that you can use it to close a deal with a very, very high ticket like cars or automotives.
To answer your question, we'll have to go back in the journey. When I joined Al Fatin again, I worked in the showroom. Back in the days, I joined in the showroom for Toyota, sales executive. That was end of 2003 approximately. And now working in the showroom as a retail sales consultant gives you the leverage and the opportunity to work with families, small companies. At that time, there was no SMEs. It was still showroom is allowed to sell to small companies. That gives you the opportunity of dealing with everyone coming into the showroom. And back then, the showroom was actually in city center. So you used to see even the walk-ins coming from the hypermarket. Now, dealing with that kind of diversity gives you the first thing, before even they taught us techniques, that you have to identify within even the family who's taking the decision, who's influencing it, which is the basics for an MBA student of how to identify the verticals and who takes those decisions. However, you learn it on the ground. Now, having worked in that area, then after that, by around a year, I was offered to move to the bulk sales. Pretty much export to non-countries using that brand. So that's where it kind of is allowed. That also gave me the leverage of working with B2B customers, traders, companies who do that kind of business. That gave me an extra exposure. Now, that is the part where your question is. Working with the B2C and B2B is very different. However, it's the same fundamentals. The only difference there is that you have to keep identifying exactly your customer, who's influencing it, the process in each one. So when we talk about B2C, from the time they come to the showroom, you meet them, you welcome them, walk around with the car with them. It's like there is actually a process. However, I am not a guy who likes to stick to that kind of scenario because it is still very much customizable. You have to know exactly from the time the customer comes, how you will going to deal with them. And you don't have much time actually. Most of the time you have to click that within 30 seconds. And that teaches you the response. That is very important. Now, when a customer comes to the showroom, we spoke about that it's actually the car at the end of the day is a means of transport. But you have to understand the psychology of the customer. And that's very important. A lot of people try to force the process of dealerships into the customer mentality. I'm a kind of a guy who comes from that area where I believe that the customer centricity is more important. We should actually tailor the processes that the customer wants, not the other way around. That's how you actually maintain the customers. And that's very important. And it kind of, you will see that being done in niche companies. However, the process is not that hard to implement. You just have to be customer-centric. That's one of the reasons why they keep feeding the employees and kind of coaching them on how to cater on that. While in reality, you just have to tell them one thing. Ask the customer what they want, what they like. Based on that, you will know how to tailor a solution. It's a very easy thing once you actually master it. And it depends how you want to look at it. And again, if you have that passion, it's super easy. You will need the passion, some skills regarding sales, and you can actually speak to anyone about that. I mean, ask anyone on the street, even if when you go to a coffee shop or you're going out with friends, the main topic is still automotive. However, I have to be very honest. You will have to tend to step back because there is a lot of stuff that you will hear, which is...
Do you believe on... Because you have like great experience in sales, in automotive and general management. Do you believe on something called sales script when it comes to interacting with clients or customers in the automotive industry? Do you believe in this?
No, totally not. And I actually don't agree with it. Because at the end of the day, it's like a talent. And it's very much like when we were talking about the opportunity when it came to me. When someone sees a talent in you, you don't need a huge part of your personality to be a talent. but you can just have the seed. You can always grow it by the skills and by working hard to actually maintain it and grow it more. And you actually have to know exactly your personality. That's how you can evolve, by the way. But just working on a script, back to your question, it can get you somewhere like 50% of the closing. It won't get you to the 100%. You will still need to do the assessment. You still need to do, if it's B2B, for example, you need to do the homework.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand the customer. You need to know their history. You need to know a lot of aspects on even how they take a decision. Now, going to B2C and retail is a totally different game. And each segment is different. You tend to ask different questions, but don't do it as a script. Speaking to customers with different backgrounds, and especially that we live in UAE, you tend to meet different cultures. It's very hard unless you understand the culture of the person on what questions to be asked. So sticking to a specific script will work in one culture, but not the other. And you cannot teach that to sales guys. You can just give them like guidelines, I would say it, but not a script. Definitely not a script. Guidelines, yes.
That's amazing. I'm also intrigued because you've moved like years and years of experience in automotive, and suddenly you moved into general management, specifically in the general management, specifically on the digital transformation. What made you just leave years and years of experience in automotives and take this jump into digital transformation?
Okay. It's not actually a movement, first of all. I mean, I'm a kind of person who likes to plan. So, and that applies even in my personal life. So when I was planning the journey, that would explain why when I joined in service, then I moved to sales, then management. And then after that, when I was offered the opportunity in that digital transformation, I saw it it just made sense. Because that was a point that I didn't see that area, how to complete the journey. By the way, and the reason being is that I always get triggered by new ideas. And it has always been a weak point. I've worked in different corporates. I would say I actually used the system in only one company. And the rest, I used to leave it for the team to use. That taught me, when I joined the digital transformation company, which is Proaxia, which I have a great pleasure being part of it, because it's part of the SAP space. Having said that, using a system which is durable and user-friendly is extremely important. And you can actually rely on it. Now, the main idea of joining that company was to complete the journey of automotive. Most of the people who work in the IT industry, by the way, are IT background. Yes, they can be specialized in the automotive sector, but you will find it very rare, someone coming from sales operations or after sales operations, hardcore. I always saw the value. I mean, and I have to get credit to my manager because not that we're in the podcast or anything, but really, I mean, he was the one also, same like the person who gave me that opportunity. He was the person who had that discussion with me. He saw the value. He saw where it adds value, not just to myself, but to the company or entity. Now, when speaking with the customers, or our customers are actually the dealerships. When speaking to the dealerships or OEMs, and when you come from an operations background, sales and after sales, you understand the process. And that's extremely important. Because that actually means you speak the language, you understand the terminology, you understand the challenges on the ground. So basically, you know when the test drive is offered, who offers it. You understand various aspects of the workflow. And when we are talking about passenger car, is different than, let's say, of commercial trucks, and it's different than machinery. Every operations, although we say automotive, but it's like, yes, it's very similar. However, each one has its own unique parts in the flow. And I'm not saying it's actually hard. I have to say that. Maybe it's hard if you don't love the thing or the industry, but I've actually enjoyed that part where you can maneuver because it adds part of to your personality is that no single day you've passed through is the same. I'm a kind of guy who likes that. I never saw myself like a routine guy who sits on a desk. Even if I have a routine work or job that's going to be based out of a desk, I will still spin it somehow. I know that. It's just in my personality. So it's more of a dynamic approach that you add to your role. Because that's how you actually can create a lot of movement around you. If you're in sales, you can create new sales. You can create new ideas for your team. It's the energy you put in the job.
How did this great experience in automotive, you put it as an adding value in your current company? What is the differentiation?
Understanding of the process, inside out.
How?
When you work in different parts of the process in automotive, you tend to understand the inner, let's say, buttons on what to press. So let's just take as an example, in service, you understand how the technician works. You understand his challenges. You understand if he's going to do this or change oil or bring the spare parts from the spare parts counter. You understand all that stuff. You've worked there. You know the challenges. You know what the planner will do. You know what the challenge of the reception engineer will do. You know what the workshop engineer will do. Having the understanding and the challenges of each part of the journey of the customer inside the workshop makes you understand, even when talking to your dealerships, on the challenges and what value you can add. You also work with your colleagues within your entity in order to cater for that solution. And that's extremely important. It's not just, and don't take it from an IT perspective that it's just an IT solution. No. At the end of the day, it has to cater for the customer. Very much like when we are talking about the automotive industry and talking about the customer, at the end of the day, the IT companies, their customer is the dealerships. They simply have to cater for what the industry needs. That is the key point. Now, if you miss that, you simply miss business. That's the simple answer.
Amazing.
Now, the IT companies, or in general, catering for the automotive industry, most of them, they offer generic solutions, which don't, again, cater for the actual customer needs and challenges. Like, a lot of things are evolving. We were talking about EVs, we were talking about hydrogen cells as a renewable resource for the cars in the future. And it's not just a solution that you provide. You have to look, even when providing a solution, what your end customer and even your dealership and whatever is in the cycle is actually serving what the customer wants. And that you're actually part of making the journey easier. That's the key point, and that's the takeaway. The harder you make it for the customer, the less business you will get. Simple.
What is the biggest struggle that you have it across your journey in the automotive or even in life?
When you let ego get in your way of progress. Biggest challenge. Biggest challenge. Simple. By the way, most of the coaching programs or whatever advice people give, it's around the ego, not personalizing things. And that's a lesson, takes a lot of time for you to actually reach inner peace and let go of the ego. Simple.
How did you overcome ego?
By loss. You tend to make mistakes and you learn. I'm not a guy who, I would say, I hate regretting, because I simply always see it as a learning lesson. you learn and you tend to learn all the way in the journey. Now, someone more junior than you can teach you lessons. Even a freshman can teach you lessons. It's up to you to give them the opportunity to teach you or not. Simple. You simply have to listen. Give them the opportunity to speak up.
How do you realize, like, self-awareness that when you take decisions or just take an action, that it's a place out of ego?
Okay, there are two aspects there. First of all, you have to be open, and that comes from the diverse experience, by the way. Most of the people who have that ego are based on a single experience module. Very much like corporates. Most of the corporates, they have a business model that they went through. And they are very right. That worked out for them. But in other corporates, I mean, you wouldn't find, like, you have the biggest two, like Pepsi and Coca-Cola, for example, in the market. They are not working the same. Both of them have very different working strategies. Same thing applies on the personal part. And I always like to use the business skills and lessons, even in the personal life. Now, letting go of the ego and actually listening to others is a very important lesson, that it's not only the way that you see, is the way that works. A simple idea from a freshman can give you a new perspective in life. A simple idea from someone, even from another department, or who has less experience than you, let's put it this way, can teach you very important lessons. The first lesson I've learned back in the days when I was in high school, I studied my IGCSEs, and I studied business in there. And I remember very well, at that time we all used to answer and have essays and stuff like that. The most valuable lesson I learned from that, one time we had a quiz, because I answered and I found that most of us have got high grades and none of us have answered the same question. So I asked the professor at that time, and he taught me the first lesson in business. In business, there is nothing called right and wrong. It's how you justify and take the path and implement the right solution in the right manner, as long as you're considering all the aspects. That is where it took me in business, that you can always take any path and can still work. You just have to tick the boxes. And that is extremely important.
Part of the things that maybe we are missing, it's self-awareness sometimes, you know. What are those triggers when you take, like, decisions? You understand that you're taking all away the ego away from your shoulder. So how do you know that, oh, now when I take decision, it's coming out of some emotions in my mind, and the main trigger is the ego. How do you control this narrative of the inner voice inside you? I filter everything that egoistic, and I take the right decision.
Okay, the answer to that question is actually understanding yourself. You have to know your positiveness and negativeness, and you have to coach yourself, work on yourself. Once you identify what you're good at and what you're not good at, you can teach yourself how to increase your skills and improve them. And you can work on your negative points and actually turn them from challenges into strengths. Honestly, that's what I did. And that is what sales taught me, by the way. A lot of things in my personality, I was not very much outgoing in the past. I mean, back in the days of university, for example. But sales taught me to be speakable. I communicate easier, not to be afraid of communication, for example. And the sales teaches you to let your ego aside. However, the ego, it's a very strange thing that we have, all of us, by the way. It's not, it can be big, but when you tend to break parts of that ego, it doesn't break all. Like, for example, in sales, the first thing I had to break is the engineering, not background, but being called an engineer. And coming from the Arab region, you know that. The first thing in engineering, the word engineer before your name. Sales teaches you that you have to let that aside. You'll be called by first name. So it took me some time until I broke that. And then after that, in management, breaking the other part of the ego, that you don't have to be the solution provider. Someone else can propose a solution and you'll have to adopt it and work and help them. That taught me the teamwork. So that's another part of the ego, which a lot of leaders, by the way, ignore it. And that is what differentiates a leader from a manager. A leader will mostly let his ego aside and work with the team. That is very important. These skills that you learn along the way are actually extremely important within your personality. So it's not a journey of breaking the ego one time. You will, whenever you feel that and understand your strengths and weaknesses, you will know when to interfere. And at the end of the day, you have to be extremely open to others in listening to advices. Or even, because that's a very big myth that people talk about, is that telling you, I want constructive feedback. Feedback is just feedback. Even if it is a negative, definitely there is a reason behind it. Now it's either up to you to listen to where it's coming from or no. Very practically. I mean, even if it is a negative one, it means there is something that provoked that person. You simply have to look at it. Revisit your approach. Work it in a bit of a diplomatical way. Maybe you need to work on that. Because also sales and management taught me something very important. You will not be able to please everyone, but still you'll have to do your best. And to know how to speak to your audience the right way, the real audience that are for you. But don't provoke the others as well. It doesn't work that way.
Do you believe in taking revenge?
No. Not at all. Not at all.
Why?
Because revenge actually takes a lot of your effort, by the way. Why? I mean, okay, if we're talking about business, there is no revenge in business. It's a business decision. If we're talking about, let's say an entity or a person, at the end of the day, they took a decision based on practical reasons. Now, if you justify that as personal, that means you misunderstood them and you're not getting the point. Then don't work in that. You're not in the right game for you then. Simple. Open a grocery store then. Don't get into corporates. It's
What
just
about
pure
personal?
business.
What about personal?
Never also. I mean, it's not really, it's not worth it. And again, letting yourself think about revenge means you didn't get the whole point. If we are talking about personal or even friends, if someone took a specific action, definitely there is a reason behind it. Just simply go and ask them, why did you do that? Maybe again, you provoked him somehow that you didn't understand. You're not getting his point. Again, that is something that sales taught me. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. How can you sell without putting yourself in the customer's shoes? It doesn't make sense. You have to put yourself in the customer's shoes. If that action irritates you, then you're not doing the right action. Simple. Rework it. Revisit it.
You spoke about you don't regret, right? You don't regret things. But if I dig deep little, what's that one thing that if you come back by time, you would change it? I wouldn't say regretting, but if you come back, if you have like sand time, you know, Prince of Persia, if you have this sand time machine, and you have the ability right now to come back to the past, your past, what would be that one thing that you want to change in Shady?
No, it's not really that, Ahmed. I mean, and that's the reason why I don't regret, because each choice we made it formed us the way we are today. So the same personality I am today, it's because I did those mistakes. So if I go back in time, I'm sure I will do the same. And I cannot teach myself that lesson without the means. Let's put it this way. And our personalities are different. Sometimes I need to make a mistake to understand that I did something wrong. And if the consequences have hurted me for a while, but that taught me a lesson, again, to break the ego. And it's the thing is that if you still have the ego ongoing in your mentality, to say that you didn't make a mistake. No, it's the courage of saying, yes, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. And if it's to answer your question, there are some times when I left corporates just because of the ego, which was not the right decision. But again, I understand where I was coming from. So it's not a matter of a wrong or a right decision, but it taught me a lesson in business. Don't let your ego govern any decision. Simple. That formed where I am today. Even in I get, when we sit in meetings or meet with various customers and they ask about advice, if I have the ego, I wouldn't give the advice. And people listen because they can hear from you and sense that there is no ego-ness and it's coming out of sincerity. That is the point. Once you get to that stage, you tend to give the advice from the bottom of your heart, from experience, and because you've seen how it hurts. So it's not a matter of regret at all.
We spoke about the digital transformation, right? So when it comes to a personal transformation, I was shocked, honestly, and we're going to show this to our audiences. I came back by the time I looked at pictures, and I was shocked. This is not you at all. So I see the personal transformation.
You should hear my friends talking about this.
We are going
and ex-colleagues, by the way.
This is totally inspiring when I see your pictures in the past, and now you're a totally different person. We're going to show this to our audiences. Now, how did you lose weight? It's totally different person, I would say. How did you lose that weight, and what was the motive behind this?
The motive, it was not really something that I wanted it, but I came to a stage in I used to love food. I still love it, but I don't eat that much anymore. So I went to that stomach sleeve operation, and I remember I had a very close friend who actually told me at that time when I asked her, and she advised me, she said, Shady, if you're going to go to that operation is a treatment, not something that you can use it as a fun or just to change how you look, because it's going to change your lifestyle. It will turn it around. And it did. It spinned it. I mean, and I'm a kind of stubborn person when it comes to that aspect. Like, I don't like to go on vitamins and stuff like that. I like to take everything natural. I like the food, as I told you. So what I did is that I sticked to the routine. So that means I started eating healthy. I still eat some junk food here and there, and I love cooking, so that actually made me increase that skill. So that's something that also changed a lot of things in the lifestyle. Whatever that were there as bad habits in eating or living, I totally stopped it. Because I found out that the only way you can live healthy is through that routine. Now, having said that, I didn't have the will to do it. And we are like human beings in general, and I know myself, very hard to control in that aspect. Again, when to do with food I'm totally weak.
But why? What is the reason and the motive that you said to yourself, I need to lose weight?
It was the medical things. I mean, I started having issues with my knee. I was approaching asthma. And the doctors all agreed that you have to lose weight. And there was no other way. And I hate surgeries, by the way. I hate them. But it was necessary. And I've went through a lot into that. By the way, it's not an easy journey. Making yourself get used to the healthy routine is not an easy job, by the way. And that's something even my personal friends don't know about. Yeah, a few of them know the routine. But they know, for example, I don't like to eat out that much. But it's not only because I don't trust the food, it's because I don't eat the big portions. I eat like every 2-3 hours. So having that routine, and everyone who's eating healthy food knows that routine. Every 2 hours you eat something, even if it is small snacks. But again, it changed everything in the personality even. You started to look at stuff practically. You stopped doing the bad habits in life. That is the part which a lot of people miss. And again, by the way, healthy food doesn't mean boring. You can still use spices. You can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to be junk.
What is that?
I hope that answered your question.
Totally. What's that one thing that you are very proud of in your life? It's a good reflection, huh?
Yeah, it's a very tough one.
Not expect.
My kids, I mean, I have a son and a daughter, so that's what I'm really proud of. And by the way, parenting is something which is great. Seriously. And especially, my son is 19 years old now, almost 19, so he tends to be like your friend.
MashaAllah. You look very young, by the way.
Thanks.
That's amazing. Okay, what's your vision and what's your plan for the future as Shady? Where do you want to go? I see that you have great experience in automotive and digital transformation, general management. What's that one thing that you want to achieve and just have this sense of fulfillment?
Adding value to the industry. That's it. Seriously. And that is even when I joined Proaxia, that was my point. I wanted to add value. I wanted to feel that I'm adding value to my role and to the entity and to the journey in the automotive business. I strongly believe that in the automotive business, there is a lot of aspects that people even didn't touch yet. They are still, and that's always a challenge for people, they are still sticking to the old ways. And they miss control or manage the challenges. Let me put it this way. And as long as I have a hand in adding the value, I mean, even after retirement, I'll still do the job. It's an automotive passion, come on. You don't stop it. And that's the nice thing about it. And even, sorry to interrupt you there, but and there is one very important part. I always had this habit even, and we had a conversation about this regarding the hiring process and all that. When hiring people, you always have two choices. Either you onboard freshmen or get ready, experienced employees. I was always a big fan of the freshmen because they are full of ideas, full of new ideas. You can always guide them and coach them on how to open their vision. It's very much like in corporates, they tell the employees always think out of the box. How are they going to think out of the box and you're putting rules around them all the time? You have internal politics. They will never be able to, they will even be afraid of saying anything. A freshman is not like that. A freshman, you're taking someone who doesn't understand yet what office politics means, what the boundaries around the organization. So he gives you very open-ended ideas, vast opportunities. Whenever you give him a challenge, he will tend to think totally with a different perspective. That is the point which I was telling you. You have to have the ability to see the talent. And because it happened to me, it taught me a very important lesson. always look at the talent. You will be amazed what people can do.
Last advice you can give to senior executives or just senior managers that they want to accelerate in their career. What's that advice, one advice you can give it to them?
Always balance between practicality and your strengths and weaknesses and what you're equipped with and with the market, and have an actual plan going forward. There is also another challenge that people don't speak about all the time, which is it's not always right to move fast, especially in management. Only move when you're quite equipped with it. Otherwise, you will do enormous mistakes and you would actually harm people along the way. And that is something, I mean, I've seen happen around me. And people, that's where people regret. And honestly, that's the part which I've always looked at during my journey. I wanted never to harm anyone along the journey. You can't imagine, Ahmed, I mean, if an employee goes back home and you're actually making him upset, he will have 1,000 thoughts in his head. If he's gonna get fired, if he's not gonna get his bonus or incentive or whatever, are you gonna deduct from his salary? It's a burden which I am personally, that's something I don't wanna take. I don't wanna be blamed for it. Yes, I can talk to him, enlighten him, guide him, coach him, teach him in a way that it's up to him. But don't let him, because it happened, I've seen it happen, and I was actually practically joking with the employee that day. The next day I came, the guy's not slept. And when I asked his colleague, he told me, because you told him this, I told him I was joking with him. And I called him in. I told him I was joking. He said, boss, I thought you will fire me. Mm-hmm. That taught me also a lesson there. Never do something that can be misunderstood by your teammates. Always double check what they understood out of it. Don't just throw the word and go.
It's amazing, man. Shady, it was a pleasure having you in Unleash today. I've learned a lot, from the personal experience and also from the automotive experience. And what I wish you really that you will go to places where magic happens, especially in automotive industry, with your experience, with your power and effort that you do. So I wish you all the best and pleasure having you today.
Thanks, Ahmed. It was really my pleasure when you reached out to me, and I follow you since a long time, and we know each other also. So I've always been a big fan. And I guess you unleashed a lot of stuff today, like you planned.
Totally.
Yeah. But again, thank you very much.
Appreciate
it. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. Unleash is the bridge between my purpose and my mission. And my mission is unleashing the human greatness to its utmost potential.